Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the farm. It's finally September, so the tomatoes are rolling. We're getting lots and lots of peppers right now. All of the flowers are in full bloom, so it's time to start thinking about saving seeds for next year. Now, you may be made of money, but me personally, I'm gonna save seeds from all of the stuff that I grew this year that I really enjoyed. So I'm gonna make sure I get some seeds from my Amish pastes. I'm gonna get some seeds from my Tappy's Heritage. I'm gonna get some of my Atomic grapes and some stuff from my pepper plants. And I'm gonna save those for next year so I don't have to buy new seeds. And then that money that I'm gonna spend on seeds next year, I'm gonna invest in new stuff to try out. So starting with the tomatoes, you wanna go ahead and find a very good looking tomato that doesn't show any signs of blight and is real ripe. This cracking up here, that's probably from a water issue, either a little too much water or a little too little bit of water, so that's not a worry. But you can see that this is a perfectly ripe, beautiful tomato free of blight. So this is the one we're going to go ahead and use for the tappies. We got the same thing here with our paste tomato. Real good looking, that little bit of scarring, that's just cosmetic. The reason that you want to pick the good-looking, ripe, healthiest fruits are because those are the genetics that you want to carry on into your plants for next year. And that doesn't just go for your fruits and your vegetables, that also goes for your flowers. But that's another video for another day. Today we're just going to focus on getting these tomato seeds fermented, dried, and stored for next year. So once you get all the fruits that you want to save picked, what you're going to want to do is you're going to need to get a plastic cup and label it 1 cup for each variety of tomato that you're trying to save. So on tomatoes, the seed pockets run vertically inside the tomato. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go ahead and quarter it vertically. So then you gain access to the seed pockets here inside the tomato. If you cut it the other direction, you're going to have to do a lot more dissecting to get to your seeds. Then take your cup. Make sure you got the right one, labeled for the right tomato. This is our tappies, and we're going to scoop these seeds out into our cup, pulp and all. You don't really need to get the flesh. Try to avoid as much flesh getting in there as possible, but we want to get the seeds and the pulp into our cup so we can ferment it. So you can see we got a pretty good amount of seeds and pulp going on in here. Next, you're just going to want to add about the same amount of water, a 1-to-1 ratio, to the amount of seeds that you have in your cup. So now we're just going to take a coffee filter, put a coffee filter on top of it, take a little bit of masking tape so it's easy removal, and we're going to tape the coffee filter right on top. We'll find a nice spot on the counter out of the way that I can set this to the side for about 3 or 4 days. And we'll go ahead and let all the seeds ferment in that water mixture. And then we'll rinse them off and be able to start drying them. So you may find yourself wondering why we have to go to the trouble of fermenting the tomato seeds and why we can't just rinse them off and dry them out like we do with a lot of our other vegetable seeds. Tomato seeds have a natural coating on them that helps them perpetuate their propagation. The number one goal of plants and animals is to pass along their genetics. So if a tomato were to fall right off of the plant into the dirt, if all of those seeds, think about it, they're super concentrated. If all of those seeds were to germinate in that same tight space, there would be an intense amount of competition. So what that coating does is it provides time for the seeds to be able to get spread out, whether that's through birds eating them and carrying them off, rabbits, other animals carrying the seeds off and dispersing them elsewhere. So naturally that coating would be removed either through the tomato rotting on the ground or through the digestive system of an animal. So what we're doing by putting those seeds in that cup is we're speeding up that fermenting process that would take place if the fruit was on the ground rotting. By putting it into a container, keeping it confined, we put the coffee filter on top of it to keep all of that air and moisture inside of the cup. So that's going to really speed up that fermenting process. When you open it back up, there will be mold on it. Don't be alarmed. That's exactly what we want. So we'll go ahead and let these guys do their thing on the counter, and we'll see you in 3 or 4 days. Well, our tomato seeds have been fermenting for 4 days. Let's take these coffee filters off and see what they're looking like. So as I mentioned before, you are going to see a little bit of mold growth. That's perfectly normal. And when you open this up, there is going to be a little bit of unpleasant smell to it, so be prepared. So I've got my Amish paste seeds here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fine mesh strainer. First I'm going to fill this up with water just to kind of dilute everything down a little bit. Swirl it around, kind of try to break some of that stuff up. And then we'll pour it out through our strainer. Make sure we get all of the seeds out of the bottom of the cup. Looking pretty good. And then we're just going to rinse it out and try to get most of these tomato solids, all what we can, out running water. And then as you can kind of see here, that gets basically all the solids out of there. Another trick you can use is you can fill your cup up with water, swirl it around real good, get everything moving around, let it set for a second, and then your seeds are going to be heavier than all the particulate, all the tomato pulp and little bits of skin and everything that might have gotten in there. The seeds are going to be heavier and they're going to sink to the bottom, and you can kind of just pour off a lot of that extra stuff. And it just leaves mostly your seeds down at the bottom of your cup. We got everything all rinsed off and cleaned off. So now that we're done with the fermenting portion, we're ready to move on to the drying portion. So the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get a piece of wax paper for each variety of seed that you're trying to save. You want to do a different sheet for each kind of seed just to make sure that you don't get it confused. You probably could try to do it all on one piece of wax paper and like draw yourself some quadrants or something to section it off. But just to make it easier on yourself to avoid confusion, go ahead and do a separate piece for each variety. So take your fermented and rinsed seeds, go ahead and plop them out on your piece of parchment paper, your piece of wax paper, I mean. And then kind of use a spoon, and you kind of want to spread them out. Try to get them out of their clumps so they'll dry. Now the reason you want to use wax paper and not like a paper plate or something like that to dry your seeds out on, once the seeds start to dry and after they have that coating off of them, you can kind of see around the edge of the seed there's all these little hairs. And if you try to do this on a paper plate or something like that, or a paper towel, it will adhere to that paper and you'll have a heck of a time getting it off. So try to use something that's wax coated. Wax paper probably being the easiest thing. So after you get them all spread out on the wax paper, you're going to want to leave them out for about 48 hours to make sure that they get completely free of moisture. After you've gotten through that 48 hours, you're going to want to store them somewhere that they're going to stay dry. Envelopes make the perfect container for holding them. I like to use these little like baby-sized manila envelopes. I think they work pretty well. And then once you have them in those envelopes, you're going to want to store them in a cool, dry place until next spring, when you're either going to put them into your seed trays and start them in your greenhouse or in your basement or however you do it, or where you're going to take them outside and get them planted for the year. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this little seed saving how-to on how to ferment and store tomato seeds. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like it. If you got a question for me, leave it down in the comment section. Be sure to hit subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Who's a good boy?